Let's stay with the discussion around the State Capture Commission of Inquiry report now, and it is the final installment that has been released. That was done on Wednesday. We continue with reaction. Let's bring in Corruption Watch's Kavisha Pillay. And Ms. Pillay, thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with what you are calling for, and that is concrete action that must now be set in motion. And you are saying that essentially people must start going to jail. How soon does that work begin for our law enforcement agencies?
Well, that work should have, has been going on and has been, some of the investigations by law enforcement agencies has been ongoing whilst the Commission was wrapping up its report. So what we're expecting to see, in the short to medium term is a lot more accountability. I think, the closure of this Commission and these reports marks the end of one chapter and the start of a new chapter. And that chapter has to be one that is about accountability and the end to impunity in South Africa.
Well, when we talk about law enforcement agencies, in the next hour, we are going to be talking to Paul Hoffman, who is from the organization Accountability Now. And he's of the view that our law enforcement agencies, in particular, the National Prosecuting Authority, is castrated. And I want to quote directly what he says, because these words are his. He says that castration is irreversible within the NPA, and he's making reference to the 9 years of the Zuma administration. If that is the prognosis, at least by some people, does that give South Africans hope that indeed concrete action is going to follow on the release of this report?
Paul has his reasons for why he believes that the NPA is castrated. I think we at Corruption Watch may have a slightly different view. I mean, we understand the seriousness of what happened, not just to the NPA, but other law enforcement institutions. We know that during this iteration of state capture, some of the first institutions to fall were that of our criminal justice agencies. Because when you destabilize those agencies, it's then very difficult for them to go after and prosecute you for corruption or to hold you accountable for your actions. So I don't dismiss the seriousness of the damage that has been done to law enforcement agencies across the board. But I do think that there are opportunities for us to fix this. I don't think it's, castrated. I think it's damaged. And, initiatives that are currently underway to fix the NPA, to fix law enforcement agencies, does give one hope that there is possibilities for these institutions to function. It does take a long time. It requires a lot of capacity, a lot of expertise. It requires, more intense budgets. We know that law enforcement agencies, despite, what government has been saying that it wants to root out corruption, they haven't been receiving the necessary funding to do so. They don't have the internal capacity to take on, the large amounts of cases that's sitting with them. So I don't, I'm not being naive about this, but I do want to say that there is at least some hope that we can fix these institutions, but it will take some time given the damage that they've undergone.
Yeah. Then you deal at length with the issue of whistleblowers. I'm going to ask two questions in one. The first is the urgency with which they have to be protected, but also the financial benefit. Surely, if we are going to encourage people to risk their lives and expose corruption in a country like ours, which already has victims, by the way, there's got to be some financial reward. Or is that too simplistic a view?
No, I don't think it's simplistic. I think that these are serious conversations that we need to have. You need to be able to compensate people for coming forward and disclosing information that, is going to save the public purse. So I think compensation is a necessary conversation. It's a conversation that we should be having. But there's also, beyond just financial support, whistleblowers do need, mental health support. They need access to legal support. They need access to, safety, physical safety. and security. So whistleblowers right now are under threat, and because the environment is not conducive and safe for whistleblowing, it means that as a country, we're not actually going to be able to deal with this corruption issue. It's also a matter of political will. At this point, it feels like it's moving really slowly to go about, amending the necessary legislation, introducing initiatives around the protection that would protect whistleblowers. So, for example, in something called the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, which is not yet been officially launched. The strategy speaks about establishing a central whistleblowing agency that would provide whistleblowers with access to mental health support, financial support, legal support, and so on. And those are tangible things that would really be able to help whistleblowers.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we're moving too slow, and whistleblowers are still under threat on a daily basis, which then prevents other people coming forward with information.
Very briefly and finally, as I let you go, you then raise the issue about a broad coalition when it comes to public procurement. You're saying this can't be left to procurement practitioners or indeed politicians. So who or what will constitute that broad coalition?
Academia, civil society organizations, business has to be part of it. Dealing with corruption is an all-of-society approach. In procurement, in particular, we know that is a loophole. We know that that's where there's a lot of corruption at the moment. And there's interesting initiatives that are emerging. There's initiatives that we've been pushing forward around open procurement, open budgeting, which then just increases a lot of transparency and would potentially prevent, it would prevent corruption instead of us always being reactive in responding to after, the money has been stolen. So it is an all of, society approach. And I want to say that, the coalition has to be a compromise of those in academia and civil society and business who are really interested in making sure that our procurement processes are tightened and that it's not vulnerable to corruption.
Kavisha Pillay, thank you very much for your time. She is from the organization Corruption Watch.